I told him I needed to experience more before settling down. He changed the locks the next day. Yeah, that's literally what happened. Looking back, I don't even know if I can explain it in a way that doesn't make me sound like the bad guy, but whatever. They weren't there. They didn't feel the four walls of our perfect life slowly, methodically, closing in on me. My name is Chloe. I'm 27, and I swear I didn't think asking for a little freedom, a little air, would detonate my entire world. 3 years. For 3 years, Ben was my world. We met at a dusty, overcrowded bookstore during a poetry reading we both pretended to find interesting. He was a high school history teacher, all quiet intelligence and tweed jackets that smelled faintly of old paper and chalk. I worked in marketing, a world of bright colors, loud campaigns, and relentless deadlines. We were opposites, and it worked. It worked beautifully. Our first apartment was a tiny one-bedroom downtown with a fire escape that overlooked a brick wall, but it was ours. I loved our little routine. Weekday mornings rushing out with travel mugs of coffee, him kissing my forehead before I ran for the train, texting silly memes throughout the day. Evenings making dinner together, his methodical chopping of vegetables next to my chaotic seasoning. We were comfortable, safe. Everyone said so. My Instagram was a carefully curated shrine to our happiness. Chloe and Ben hiking in the autumn mist. Chloe and Ben laughing at a concert, heads thrown back. Chloe and Ben disgustingly cute at home, tangled up on the sofa with a bowl of popcorn. We were that couple. The one everyone called number relationship goals. The one people looked at and thought, they've got it all figured out. And maybe we did. But then the whispers started. They didn't come from outside. They came from my best friend Jenna. We'd be at brunch, mimosas sweating in the Sunday sun, and she'd lean in conspiratorially. Don't you ever miss the excitement, Chloe? She'd ask, stirring her drink. The thrill of a first date? That spark when you meet someone new? I'd laugh it off. I have a spark. Ben's my spark. But she'd just smile that knowing smile of hers. Yeah, but that's a bonfire. It's warm and steady. I'm talking about fireworks, the unpredictable kind. Jenna lived a life of fireworks. She was a freelance photographer, always flying off to some exotic location, a string of handsome, interesting men in her wake. Her stories were full of passion and spontaneity. A weekend fling in Barcelona, a whirlwind romance with a musician in Nashville. I'd listen, captivated, while picking up Ben's socks from the bathroom floor for the millionth time, and a thought, ugly and sticky like gum in my hair, would take root. Maybe I was missing out. The thought grew louder every time I scrolled through social media. It seemed like everyone I knew was living their best life, a life of adventure and endless options. Tara had just matched with a literal model on a dating app. Jenny was dating a guy who flew her to Miami for the weekend just because. Meanwhile, Ben and I were arguing about whose turn it was to clean the bathroom. The real poison seeped in during a girls' night at Jenna's apartment. The wine was flowing, and so was the advice. You've only been with what, 3 guys your whole life? Jenna said, refilling my glass until it nearly overflowed. That's nothing. How do you know Ben's the one if you haven't experienced other options? Exactly, Tara chimed in, her eyes wide with sincerity. My mom always said you should test drive a few cars before buying one. It was supposed to be a joke, but it didn't feel funny. It felt true. Suddenly, everything about Ben started to annoy me. The way he chewed his food too loudly, a thoughtful, rhythmic crunch that now grated on my nerves. How he always chose the same Italian restaurant for date night because he loved their lasagna. His predictable routines, once a source of comfort, now felt like a prison sentence. 3 years suddenly felt suffocating instead of secure. All these girls were living their best lives while I was arguing about throw pillows. Was this really going to be my whole story? Then, I did something stupid. Or maybe it wasn't stupid at the time, it felt like research. I looked up my ex-boyfriend on social media, Dylan. He was the fireworks Jenna was always talking about. A wild, unpredictable musician I dated for 6 months in college. Our relationship was a beautiful disaster, all passion and fighting and making up. Looking at his profile now, he was still traveling, still playing in his band, still dangerously handsome. On an impulse, fueled by a glass of cheap wine and a profound sense of FOMO, I sent him a message. Hey, stranger. Long time no see. You look like you're doing great. He replied almost instantly. And just like that, a door I thought was locked and bolted forever had creaked open. It was just a friendly chat, I told myself. Nothing more. But I was already lying. Ben noticed the change in me. He always did. He was observant in that quiet way of his. You've been distant lately, he said one night as we did the dishes together, the steam from the sink fogging up the window. Everything okay? Just tired, I lied, scrubbing a plate with unnecessary force. Work has been crazy. But the distance grew, inch by inch. I started going out more with Jenna and the girls, coming home later, being vaguer about my plans. The late-night chats with Dylan became more frequent, little sparks of excitement in my otherwise predictable life. He was a reminder of a different Chloe, a Chloe who took risks. The breaking point came when Ben found brochures for solo travel packages to Southeast Asia tucked into my handbag. I hadn't actually planned to go anywhere, just browsing, really, fantasizing. But he looked at me like I'd already packed my bags and left. Are you unhappy with me, Chloe? He asked that night, his voice so serious it scared me. And I realized then I had to tell him how I was feeling. Little did I know that conversation would be a point of no return. I think we need to talk, I said, sitting cross-legged on our bed while he folded laundry. He was so domestic, so Ben. This wasn't supposed to be a breakup. In my head, it was just an adjustment, a pause button. That sounds ominous, he said, half smiling until he saw the look on my face. What's going on? I took a deep breath, rehearsing the lines I'd practiced in my head, the ones that made me sound thoughtful and profound instead of selfish. I love you. You know that, right? But I've been thinking about us, about me, about life. And I feel like maybe I need to experience more before we get too serious. His expression shifted from concern to confusion. Too serious? Chloe, we live together. We've been together for 3 years. We've talked about marriage. How are we not already serious? I tried to explain it, the way Jenna had explained it to me. That's just it. We've been in this bubble, and it's been amazing. But sometimes I wonder if I'm missing out on life. On other experiences. My friends? Your friends? He cut me off, his voice hardening. The ones who can't keep a relationship longer than their nail polish? Those friends? That irritated me. Don't be condescending. They're just living differently. And sometimes I wonder if I should have explored more options before settling down. Ryan got very quiet. The way he folded a t-shirt became sharp, precise. Options? I'm an option now. That's not what I meant. I backpedaled, feeling the conversation slipping away from me. Maybe we could take a break. Not break up exactly, but open things up, temporarily. He stared at me like I'd suggested we rob a bank. You want us to stay together while you date other people? When he said it like that, it sounded so crude, so ugly. In my head, it had made perfect, enlightened sense. Not like regular dating, I stammered. Just experiences. Then I'd know for sure that you're the one. And we could fully commit without me having these doubts. I even mentioned Dylan, framing it as a need to close an old chapter, to see what I had moved on from. It was a mistake. I saw a flicker of deep hurt in his eyes. So, you want me to wait at home, he said, his voice dangerously calm, while you go out and sleep with other guys, including your ex, then welcome you back when you've decided I'm good enough after all? You could experience people too, I offered weakly, though the thought of him with someone else made my stomach churn. It would be fair. Ben laughed. It was a short, bitter, ugly sound. I don't want anyone else, Chloe. I thought you felt the same. I do love you, I insisted, my voice rising with frustration. This isn't about love. It's about making sure we're not making a mistake. We? He raised an eyebrow. There's no we in this plan, is there? This is about you wanting to sleep with other people without losing your safety net. That stung because maybe it was a little true. But he was missing the point. My point. You're not a safety net. You're the person I want to build a life with. I just need to be sure. If you want to be single, then be single, he said, his voice like ice. Completely. I'm not going to be your backup plan. The conversation spiraled from there. He asked if there was already someone specific. I told him no, which was a lie. I accused him of being controlling. He said I was selfish and reckless. We both said things we shouldn't have. Fine, I finally snapped, grabbing my purse, tears of frustration streaming down my face. I'll go stay with Jenna for a few days until you calm down and we can talk about this rationally. Don't expect things to be different when you come back, he warned, his back to me as he stared out the window. Whatever. You'll realize I'm being reasonable once you think about it. I shot back, convinced he was overreacting. Little did I know, I wouldn't be coming back to our apartment at all. Jenna's couch wasn't nearly as comfortable as it looked. The first night, however, it felt like a throne of liberation. Jenna opened a bottle of expensive champagne, toasted to my freedom, and we ordered greasy pizza. She was thrilled, living vicariously through my drama. He'll come crawling back in 2 days, you'll see, she declared, her eyes sparkling. He'll realize what he's losing. I clung to that thought like a life raft. Ben was just angry. He was hurt. He needed time to think, to see things from my perspective. He hadn't texted once, which was unusual, but I told myself he was just giving me space. By day 3, the champagne buzz had worn off. Jenna's excitement about my freedom faded when she had to step over my makeshift bed to get to her kitchen. So, how long are you planning to crash here? She asked, not unkindly, but with an edge. A guy I've been seeing is supposed to come over tomorrow night. Just until Ben gets over himself, I said, scrolling through my phone, my thumb hovering over his contact photo. Still nothing. A knot of anxiety began to tighten in my stomach. But you're basically broken up, right? Jenna pressed. Shouldn't you be looking for your own place? We're not broken up, I snapped. We're just figuring things out. Jenna gave me a look, the kind of look that said, you poor delusional idiot. He told you to move out, Chloe. The situation at Jenna's grew tense. My supposed best friend was kicking me out for a hookup. I tried calling Tara and Jenny. Tara was suddenly redecorating her guest room. Jenny had family visiting. Convenient excuse. Fine, I'd go back to my place. His place. Our place. Ben had had enough time to cool off. He missed me. He had to. I took an Uber back to our apartment complex that afternoon, rehearsing my apology speech. I'd be calm. I'd be reasonable. I'd even admit I was a little wrong. When I put my key in the lock, it didn't turn. I tried again, jiggling it the way you sometimes had to. Nothing. It felt solid, blocked. Weird. I knocked instead. Loudly. No answer. After 20 minutes of knocking and calling his name, our neighbor, Mrs. Gable, a sweet old lady with a fluffy white dog, stuck her head out. He's not home, dear. Left for work hours ago. My key isn't working, I explained, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. She gave me a sympathetic look, her brow furrowed. Oh, I saw the locksmith here yesterday. I thought you knew. My mouth went dry. Locksmith? I'm sorry, honey, she said softly. Maybe try calling him again. I sank down against our door, his door now, and tried to process what was happening. He'd changed the locks. He'd actually, physically locked me out of my own home. The home I had helped decorate. The home where my favorite books were on the shelf and my clothes were in the closet. I called Ben again and again. On the 5th try, he finally picked up. What do you want, Chloe? His voice was cold, distant, a stranger's voice. My key doesn't work, I said, my voice trembling. Did you change the locks? Yes. One word. No explanation. My temper flared, hot and wild. Are you kidding me? That's illegal. My name is on the lease, too. I called the landlord this morning, he said flatly. I'm taking over the lease entirely. Your name will be removed. You have until Saturday to arrange to pick up your things. I'll have them boxed up and left with the building superintendent. Don't come when I'm here. You can't just decide that. I was shouting now, not caring who heard. Where am I supposed to go? All my stuff is in there. You should have thought about that before you decided you needed to experience more, he said, and for the first time, his voice cracked with emotion. Bitter, hurt, anger. You wanted freedom? Well, now you've got it. He hung up. I was left sitting in the hallway of what used to be our apartment building, homeless and utterly shocked. I called Jenna, sobbing. He changed the locks. Can you believe him? Who does that? There was a long pause before she answered. That's extreme. But Chloe, what did you expect? You basically told him you wanted to sleep with other guys while keeping him on hold. That's not what I said. But even as I protested, I wondered if that was exactly how it sounded to him. As I waited for another Uber, staring at the building I couldn't enter, I realized my friends weren't my allies. They'd been all for me experiencing more when it was a theoretical concept, a fun bit of brunch gossip. But now that I was facing the real, messy consequences, they were backing away. I was starting to wonder if I'd made a terrible, terrible mistake. Desperation is a good motivator for finding an apartment, it turns out. Within a week, I was signing a lease on a depressing studio on the other side of town. It smelled like stale cigarettes and regret. The single window looked out onto a dumpster. This was my new freedom. It was bleak. My life became a miserable routine of work, unpacking boxes, and obsessive stalking. Since Ben had blocked me on every platform, I did what any rational, heartbroken woman would do. I created a fake Instagram account, a generic profile with a stock photo of a sunflower. From there, I watched him. At first, there was nothing. Silence. It felt like he'd dropped off the face of the earth. Then, about 3 weeks after the lockout, a post appeared. It was a picture of a lopsided, misshapen pottery bowl, glazed in a streaky blue. The caption read, "First attempt, more difficult than it looks." Never emda. Pottery? Ben? The man whose idea of a creative outlet was building complex historical dioramas for his students? I clicked on the tagged location, Clay and Kiln Studio. A friend of a friend, someone who hadn't yet heard the gossip and still followed us both, had commented, "Looks great, man." Olivia's a great teacher, isn't she? Olivia. The name felt like a stone in my gut. I clicked on the tag. Her profile was public. She was a potter, a ceramics artist. Her photos were full of earthy colors, dusty hands, and serene smiles. She was wholesome, pretty in a quiet, unassuming way that made me instantly hate her. She had long, wavy brown hair and kind eyes, the opposite of my sharp bob and carefully applied eyeliner. She was everything I wasn't. My obsession shifted from Ben to her. Who was this woman? This calm, pottery-making saint who had swooped in? A week later, I did something I'm not proud of. I found out from that same mutual friend that Ben's class was on Thursday nights. That Thursday, I put on my best revenge outfit, a black dress that was a little too tight, and heels that were a little too high, and went to a coffee shop across the street from the studio. I sat there for 2 hours, nursing a single cold latte, my heart pounding in my chest, and then I saw them. They walked out together, laughing. Ben was holding 2 lopsided mugs, and she was playfully trying to wipe a smudge of clay off his cheek. He looked lighter, happier than I had seen him in months. The tense line that had permanently settled between his brows when he was with me was gone. He smiled at her, and it was the same genuine, unguarded smile he used to give me. I felt a surge of pure, uncut jealousy. It was so intense it made me dizzy. In my mind, this Olivia was a predator, a scheming, homespun opportunist who had taken advantage of him in a moment of weakness. She had no right to his smile. That was my smile. I wanted to storm across the street, to throw my cold latte in her serene face, to scream at Ben that he was making a huge mistake. But I just sat there, frozen, a prisoner in my own pathetic spy movie. Instead, I took out my phone, my hands shaking, and took a picture through the window. A blurry shot of their backs as they walked away, their shoulders almost touching. I sent it to Jenna. Look how fast he replaced me. Her reply was instant. Oh my God, what a jerk. But for the first time, her validation felt hollow. It wasn't Ben who looked like the jerk in that moment. It was me, hiding in the shadows, clinging to a life I had voluntarily shattered. He wasn't performing for me. He was just living, and he was doing it without me. The sight of Ben with Olivia lit a fire under me. A desperate, self-destructive fire. Fine. If he could move on, so could I. I was going to get the experiences I wanted. I was going to have so much fun he'd hear about it and be crippled with regret. My first call was to Dylan. He met me at a loud, trendy bar downtown. He still had that same restless energy, that same charmingly crooked smile. For the first hour, it was thrilling. We reminisced about our crazy college days. He told me stories from his band's latest tour, and he made me feel exciting and desirable again. I can't believe a guy like Ben would ever let you go, he said, leaning in close, his voice a low rumble over the music. He must be an idiot. I soaked it in. Yes, Ben was the idiot, not me. But as the night wore on, the thrill began to fade. Dylan wasn't listening to me, he was waiting for his turn to talk. He wasn't interested in my job, my life, or my heartbreak. He was interested in one thing. When he leaned in to kiss me, it was sloppy and tasted of whiskey and ego. It felt empty. There was no connection, no warmth. It was just friction. I made an excuse and left early, feeling lonelier than I had before. This was the fireworks? This hollow, transactional encounter? It didn't hold a candle to a quiet Tuesday night on the couch with Ben, his arm wrapped around me, his familiar scent, a comforting anchor. Undeterred, I threw myself into the world of dating apps. I went on a dozen dates in 2 weeks. It was a parade of profound disappointment. There was the finance bro who spent an hour explaining NFTs to me, the fitness fanatic who critiqued my choice of pasta, the guy who looked nothing like his photos and spent the entire date texting. Each man was a new flavor of wrong. I found myself comparing all of them to Ben. None of them had his quiet wit. None of them had his kindness, the way he'd really listen when I talked. None of them made me feel safe. This world outside my bubble, the one Jenna had painted as a vibrant wonderland of possibilities, was actually a desolate wasteland of small talk and ghosting. The freedom I craved was just loneliness in disguise. The final nail in the coffin of my delusion came, fittingly, from Jenna. She was complaining about her landlord, drunk and weepy on my uncomfortable studio couch. "It's just not fair," she slurred, wiping away a tear. "Some people just have it so easy, like you and Ben did. You guys had the perfect apartment, the perfect relationship. I hated it sometimes, you know?" I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" "I was so jealous of you," she admitted, her voice dropping to a mumble. "Everything was always so easy for you. You had him wrapped around your little finger. I just thought you didn't appreciate what you had. I thought if you saw what else was out there, I don't know." She didn't have to finish. I knew. She wanted me to be miserable like her. Misery loves company, after all. The advice, the encouragement, the "you deserve more," it wasn't for my benefit. It was born from her own insecurity and jealousy. She hadn't been trying to empower me. She had been trying to sabotage me. I looked around my sad little apartment, at the boxes I still hadn't fully unpacked. I thought of the hollow dates, the meaningless conversations. I thought of Ben's happy, smiling face next to that pottery girl. For the first time, the weight of what I had done crashed down on me, not as an intellectual concept, but as a physical, crushing force. It was all my fault. I had listened to the wrong people. I had chased a fantasy, and I had traded a life of genuine happiness for a handful of empty experiences and a profound aching void. 2 months. It had been 2 months of living in my personal purgatory. 2 months of watching Ben's life blossom from a distance while mine wilted. His social media, which I still check daily, was now peppered with photos of him and Olivia, hiking, visiting a museum. A picture of the 2 ugly mugs they'd made, sitting side by side on his kitchen counter, our kitchen counter. I couldn't take it anymore. The regret was a physical illness, a constant nausea in the pit of my stomach. I convinced myself there was still a chance. He had loved me for 3 years. That kind of love doesn't just disappear. He was just hurt. If I could just talk to him, face to face, and show him how sorry I was, I could fix this. I knew he usually went for a run in the park near our old apartment on Saturday mornings. So I went there. I ambushed him. I waited on a bench near the jogging path, my heart hammering against my ribs. When I saw him approaching, headphones in, his face set in concentration, I stood up. Ben. He stopped, pulling his headphones down. He looked good, healthier. The stress lines were gone, replaced by a light tan. He wasn't surprised to see me, he just looked tired. "Chloe." What are you doing here? No warmth, no anger, just nothing. This was my moment. I launched into the speech I had rehearsed 1,000 times. The tears came easily. They were real enough. I made a mistake, Ben. I choked out, stepping closer. A horrible, stupid mistake. I wasn't thinking. Jenna and my friends, they got in my head with all this nonsense, and I panicked. I was scared. He just looked at me, his expression unreadable. So now it's your friend's fault. No, I said quickly. It's my fault for listening. It's all my fault. I never wanted anyone else. I was just immature. I see that now. I see what life is like without you, and it's awful. I miss you. I miss our life. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. A shadow of the man who used to love me. Hope, wild and desperate, flared in my chest. Chloe, he started, and his voice was softer now. But he was cut off. Hey, I brought you water. I turned. It was Olivia. She was standing there in running gear, holding out a bottle of water to Ben, a small, tentative smile on her face. She stopped short when she saw me, her smile faltering. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize, she said, looking between us awkwardly. No, it's fine, Ben said, and the way his voice warmed when he spoke to her was like a physical blow. He took the water, his fingers brushing against hers. Chloe was just leaving. My throat closed up. He had turned back to me, but his whole posture had shifted, angled protectively toward her. I made a mistake, I repeated, my voice a desperate whisper. People make mistakes, Ben. You can't throw away 3 years over one stupid conversation. It wasn't just the conversation, Chloe, he said quietly, his eyes holding mine. It was the realization that while I was planning our future, you were looking for the exit. That changes everything. It rewrites every memory. So that's it? You've replaced me already? With the first girl who showed you a little attention? The bitterness spilled out before I could stop it. His face darkened. You don't get to do that, he said, his voice dangerously low. You don't get to act jealous when you're the one who wanted the freedom to be with other people. He looked at Olivia, who was standing a few feet away, pretending to be interested in a nearby tree. Then he looked back at me, and on her left hand, I saw it. A simple, elegant ring with a small, sparkling diamond. It wasn't flashy. It was quiet and steady and sure. It was everything he was. I haven't replaced you, Chloe, he said, his voice level again. I've moved on. There's a difference. He took Olivia's hand, her left hand. Olivia and I are getting engaged. The world tilted on its axis. Engaged? It had been barely 3 months. That's crazy, I stammered. You barely know each other. Sometimes when you know, he said, echoing the words he had once said to me. He looked at Olivia with a depth of feeling that made my entire body ache. She loves me for who I am, not as a placeholder while she shops for something better. She doesn't need to test drive other cars. She knows what she wants. He turned back to me one last time, his eyes clear of any anger or love. They were just empty. I really do hope you find those experiences you were looking for, Chloe. Goodbye. He and Olivia turned and jogged away, their strides falling into a comfortable rhythm. I stood there on the path, frozen, long after they were gone. The sounds of the park children laughing, dogs barking faded into a dull roar in my ears. He used my own stupid words against me. A test drive. I had wanted to experience more, and I had. I experienced what it felt like to be homeless. I experienced the sting of fake friendships. I experienced a string of disappointing dates with men who saw me as disposable. And now, I was experiencing the unbearable finality of watching the man I loved, the man I threw away, build a new life, a better life, with someone else. I got the freedom I thought I wanted. But the price was everything I ever truly had. And now, I'm just alone with it.